Picking up where we left off on episode 71, we will continue our discussion on modulation to distantly related keys. Our focus for this show? The use of chromatic third relationships. Welcome to Music Student 101. Here are your hosts, Jeremy Burns and Matthew Scott Phillips.
Welcome back, musicians.
Welcome back.
And music enthusiasts.
Indeed.
We are Music Student 101.
And we are here with some more music theory.
Hopefully to give it to you in a manner that is approachable.
As possible.
This show will certainly be a testimony to whether or not we can do that effectively.
Indeed. This is some heavy stuff, but good stuff.
Yeah. This was, it's a pretty robust topic, so this is part 2 of modulation to distantly related keys.
Indeed.
We already covered the first one.
And in that one, we talked about using things like a Neapolitan 6 as a 5 chord, right? And a German augmented 6, which is really a 5-7 chord.
Yeah.
And in so doing, end up in a key that is very, very distant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, in this episode, we're going to explore some of these mediant relationships. Or the third, I guess, chromatic thirds.
The chromatic mediant, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But before we do that, let's just talk about stuff, Matt. How's your day been going?
Oh, it's busy. It's crazy. This semester is particularly busy, so...
So even on a Sunday...
Even on a Sunday, yeah, things are happening.
And here you are in the studio.
And here I am.
Because you love it so.
I would rather do this, honestly. But.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Not a whole lot is new with me. Plugging along as I do.
Indeed, yeah. We continue to chug.
Yes, we do. Plug and chug. Okay, well, maybe it's time we talk about some of these new listeners here and some new reviews.
Yeah, let's do some of that.
You want to take the first one, Matt?
Sure. So this review comes from Ted Sims from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
He says, Jeremy, Matt, my main focus is learning to play the bass guitar really well. A lifelong pursuit.
Yeah, I'll let you know when I'm there.
But I love music theory and love your podcast. I especially like to relate theory to the techniques of playing the bass, such as why the dominant or leading tone is a good approach note for bass lines, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to listen to your podcast while driving or doing tasks like the dishes and house cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
I am very proud that I can now understand what a 7-6-5 of 5 chord is.
That's good.
Yeah. I'm not in a position right now to help you guys financially. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll sing the praises of this podcast whenever I can. And if ever you feel like discussing how Music Student 101 can be related to classic R&B, souls, and blues bass, I would be all ears. Ted Sims. That's a very good question.
Yeah.
We could do more to explore specific genres and the kinds of theory specific genres use, I suppose. R&B and things, they tend to have kind of that minor pentatonic thing going on in the bass line. Kind of that kind of thing going on in the bass line. We could talk about some of those other genres just in general.
In my head, I'd kind of was putting that off until we got a lot, initially a lot more theory under our belts, but I think at this point we could probably start doing that, right?
At this point, we have enough theory into our belts to probably look at how certain genres use particular music theory techniques. Because we are branching into a theory that is sort of high-level classical and jazz, really starting with last podcast and continuing with this one. So yeah, we could start thinking about those kinds of things for sure.
Right on. Well, very good. Well, perhaps we will do that in the near future.
Yeah.
Now, let us move on to our new Patreon patron.
Yay!
We got a friend of ours here named Rick Allen from Yorkshire, UK. You notice how I said Yorkshire?
Yorkshire?
I think that's the proper way to say it. In the last episode, I caught myself saying Hampshire.
Hampshire?
From where our friend Mariah Schillern is from.
Right.
But I want to correct that because...
So it's with a sheer, like it... So
Hampshire.
Yorkshire, Hampshire.
I tend to hear people from the UK say it more like that. Although...
Yeah.
the Lord of the Rings, the hobbits did not live in a shire; they lived in a shire.
The Shire, yeah.
But these are fictitious characters.
Yeah, you can't go by that, you know.
So we're going to stick with Yorkshire, okay?
I think I have a tendency to say. I know I say York. I might say Yorkshire.
Uh-huh.
I wonder if that's just a further abomination or.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We Southerners are not known for getting everything right in terms of.
Or anything really.
But you keep listening, don't you? Okay, back to Rick. Rick. Now, Rick plays bass in a band.
Okay.
And he's noticing that he is the more advanced member of the band.
That happens to. Oh, should I say that happens to bass players a lot?
That's kind of funny. That
happens
maybe
to
you're
bass
right.
But I won't say that.
Bias much?
No comment.
But it's funny because we made a joke a while ago that if you're the best guy, if you're the best musician in the band, you're in the wrong band.
You're in the wrong band, yeah.
But come on, that's not fair. Someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to be the best musician in the band.
And Rick says he's been using this opportunity to do more of the arrangements for the band. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
He says, I've set up a Patreon account for you as a very modest token of my appreciation. And there's something satisfying about knowing that the telltale clinks of ice in a refreshing iced coffee are down to me. Are you talking about this?
The very thing, yeah, buddy.
I even put a nice little slurp in there. Crunch on some ice. That was your money going down my gullet.
That was your money going down.
And I thank you. Keeping us in coffee.
And it is so important. We can't do this without coffee.
And he mentions iced coffee because he says, I reckon Birmingham is a sweaty place.
You are correct, sir.
So I see it as a medical assistance.
You better believe it. It is late September and still in the upper 90s, still very close to 100 degrees.
It was 94 when I last checked today.
Yeah, it was 98 yesterday.
In our last Patreon episode, we mentioned that we do these episodes completely naked. And that's okay. I'm not ashamed of my body.
With giant fans.
But we can't have our electric fans on, so we have to have people with the big fans.
Yeah, we just have to,
You can't hear us chomping on the grapes.
If you would like to be one of our fan people.
Literally. Yeah.
It gives the word fan a whole new meaning.
So anyways, Rick
giant leaves, fanning
the palm leaves.
Yeah, giant palm leaves fanning us while we talk about theory.
So anyways, he says, I can safely say you have really transformed my approach to music. I've played the guitar off and on for 25 years, but have always felt limited by my lack of understanding of why certain songs and musical devices work. You have given me the tools to figure it out for myself and to build on this with other resources that are out there. It's really liberating. On that note, I have to recommend Rick Beethoven's What Makes This Song Great YouTube series. We'll have to check that out, won't we?
Yes, we will.
It's an excellent compliment to what you guys do. Please keep on with what I know is a heavy commitment for you, as you are doing a great service to those of us out here who have struggled to self-teach ourselves with turgid textbooks over the years.
Turgid.
A lot of good alliteration in there.
There's a new word for my vocabulary to describe music theory textbooks.
We have another word.
Turgid.
Turgid.
I can add that to weighty, voluminous, labyrinthine.
Oh, we're in a giggly mood today, Matt, aren't we?
We seem to be.
Okay, so the one thing that my feeble brain can't seem to cope with are inversions. I get the concept, but the nomenclature completely befuddles me. I comfort myself by saying that this applies more to keys than guitar. You want to talk about that, Matt?
Sure.
Because within these listener mails, we can get some theory nuggets, can't we?
We sure can. And it's funny, I had just a student, not even, well, he was my student, not my theory student, but I had a student come up to me just the other day with a similar question about the nomenclature. So why is a 5-chord in a first inversion a 5/6 chord?
Yes.
This is extremely confusing to a lot of people.
Yes.
Really quickly, if I'm in C, if we were in the good old key of F, we do F-like things. And I play a 5-chord, but I play a 5 in first inversion, with the E in the bottom. Why do we call that 5/6?
Yes.
So
Because it changes the sonority to have this note in the bass instead of this note.
changes what that chord is going to do,
Oh,
right?
okay.
You know, so like a 5/6 chord, very possible to move to a 1, moving up. So we got that bass line, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then like a passing 6/4 chord is going to move to a 1/6 chord. So inversions sort of change that, and they create cool bass lines, and you know we've talked about that before.
Uh-huh.
So why do we call it a 5/6? Well, when the third of the chord, E in this case, is in the bass, it creates the interval of a sixth, a minor sixth specifically, from the E up to the root of this chord.
Yes, I hear it.
So there's
Minor
our
sixth.
sixth in this chord,
Uh-huh.
and that interval was created by my moving that chord so that the third is in the bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we went from we took that major third and inverted it to a minor sixth,
Yes.
and left the fifth in there. So, right?
So that's first inversion, right?
That's first inversion. Technically a 6/3.
Okay.
Because there is a 6 in the bass, and then there is, this is the octave doubling,
Uh-huh.
right? And then there is, that's a minor 10th, but we just call it a 3 for simplicity's sake. So technically 6/3,
Yes.
but we consider the 3 to be implied because every chord is going to have a 3 in it.
Yes, okay, so for the sake of brevity and because of implications.
Yeah, we call it a 6. If any chord that's in first inversion, we say it's a 6 with a little superscript, right?
1/6 chord, 5/6
1 6
chord.
5 6 2 6.
Yeah, that's
right?
a very common one, right?
Yeah. Whereas if this chord was in second inversion with a fifth in the bass, what we have, we still have a 6. This time, right, a major 6 specifically, and we still have this octave doubling.
Yes.
But between the G and the C, we have the interval of a fourth.
Yeah.
So we're going to call this a 6/4 chord.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the 4 is not implied. We have a new new sonority.
Yeah, we have this sonority that's not just implied. It just isn't in just any chord or every chord. It's kind of specifically in this one. So we're going to call that a 6/4 because it has a 6 above our lowest sounding note and a fourth above our lowest sounding note.
Uh-huh.
When you get into seventh chords, the system is going to be the same. So a 5/7 has a seventh above the bass. When you start to invert it, you'll have a 6/5 chord, technically a 6/5/3 chord, but of course that 3 is implied because it will have the interval of major 6 and the interval of major 5th above the bass. And then a 4/3 chord in second inversion. You get how this is going now.
Uh-huh.
You know, and then a 4/2 chord. You know, when you have a 7 chord that is in third inversion, you know, you have that interval of a fourth above the bass, you know, and then the interval of a second, you know, above the bass.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
In the case of that 7th chord.
Yeah. Yeah. But so that's what they're talking about. They're talking about intervals above the bass. You know, because this all goes back to ways to get harpsichord players in the 16th century to improvise. You
Yes,
know?
for
Right.
accompaniment.
Right. They would just, because paper was very valuable, very expensive, hard to come by. You didn't want to waste a whole lot of it. You just write the bass line in the left hand, and then write these little numbers below. So here's the note in the bass line. Okay, well let me play a 6 and a 4 above that, and you know I have a chord that's going to sound with everything else that's going on at that time. You know,
Right.
they got really good at that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know. It's only later when we started realizing, hey, you know, this has a thing that we're going to call function and has a relationship to the tonic that we're going to call 5, you know, that we added the 5 to just 6 and 4 above the bass.
Cool. So one more time for Rick, we got root. Root was just nothing.
Nothing.
Root position, nothing.
Technically, root is a 5/3 chord.
Okay.
But yeah, we don't call it that. There's no reason to complicate things.
Right, because we already know that there's a 5th and a 3rd in any triad.
In any triad.
First inversion is a 6 chord.
Yes.
5/6, 1/6.
Yep.
Second inversion, we're going to call that a 6/4 chord.
6/4. Yeah.
And then how about those seventh chords?
So then when you go to 7 chords, you have root position, which is 7. We added a 7 to the triad.
Oh, yeah, right.
First inversion, which is 6/5. Second inversion, 4/3. And third inversion, 4/2, which are just the intervals above the bass, minus thirds, which are generally implied, and eighths, which are generally implied.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Hope that made sense.
Yeah, and sixes, which are generally implied in those seventh chords, like 6/4/3 and 6/4/2, because at that point we're used to that, I guess.
Right. We did do an episode on inversions, and some of these people ask these questions before they get to certain episodes, right? He might have already heard this episode.
Sure. Well, it's no problem to go back over it. This is something that confuses a lot of people.
It never hurts, and we do like to get back to the basics on occasion, don't we?
Yeah.
Well, one more thing about Rick Allen, who made no mention of being the drum player for Def Leppard. But if you are
the drummer for Def Leppard,
Doom Buggies, check for $1
we're
million.
big fans.
Yes. Great harmonies, guys. Great harmonies. But also, Rick, I think he mentioned he has a baby on the way in October.
Congratulations.
And this is October, so we're going to have to hear more about that.
Yeah, going to have to hear more about that, definitely.
So keep us posted on that, Rick. We're rooting for you.
Indeed.
Okay, let's move on, shall we?
Yes.
Now, we have ourselves a listener mail from our friend Scott Jackson. Scott Jackson is a singer-songwriter out of Denver, Colorado. A structural and building design engineer by day, he spends his free time building a badass recording studio and making new songs. His words. Scott has an album available on all the major players, iTunes, Spotify, and all that stuff. A Chance to Fly is the name of the album. Now, I messaged him on Facebook. I liked his page, and I messaged him a little while ago to get permission to use this song.
Yeah.
So if this all works out, we're going to hear his music, a song called Settling In.
Okay.
Because it's instrumental.
Okay.
While you read his email. Won't that be cool?
That'll be cool. Let's do that.
Let's do it, man. What does our friend Scott Jackson have to say?
So Scott says, cue music. I'm a guitarist/songwriter that has been playing mostly by ear for the majority of my life, but started to apply theory to the madness about 2 years ago to help me with part writing, etc. Now that I have some basic theory under my belt, I have found it extremely helpful in my recording/producing tasks and for learning other instruments. I'm learning the piano, banjo, and mandolin right now, and I owe most of the progress I've made to applying theory instead of just going with what sounds good. Though that is a big help too.
Of course.
Yes. I have one question regarding intervals. I know that an interval that lies within the root note's major scale is a major interval. I also know that dropping that major interval by a half step makes it a minor interval. I just want to clarify that this minor interval is not necessarily in the minor scale of the original root note, and that the word minor is being used in a different way, correct? I would say that is, yes, correct. For instance, a minor second interval is not the second scale degree of the minor scale, and most certainly is not.
Nope.
Both major and minor scales start with a whole step. A minor second interval is a half step, however. Is there any reasoning behind this other than the repeated use of the word minor for two different purposes? Is there any... Well, first of all, you're right. You will see books that will say, well, if the two notes are in the same major scale, they're a major interval, and if they are in the same minor scale, they're a minor interval. And every time I hear this, I use Scott's very example. Well, what about the second? Right, And what about the minor seventh, which is in neither of those two, unless you're talking about natural minor, right?
True.
First of all, you are absolutely correct. We're just kind of using minor to mean a half step smaller than a major interval, and that is, in my mind anyway, the best way to think about it. Now, is there any reason to this beyond just using minor in a different way? Not a good one that I can think of or have ever heard of. I can think that maybe the name of the interval could have come first. That the minor interval, the name minor was applied to the interval first, and then later we realized there were a bunch of minor intervals in the minor scale, so we named it such.
Nice. Yeah.
But that's really kind of conjecture on my part. It's feels to me like we're just using the word minor in completely different ways, and probably for historical Middle Ages European Gregorian chant reasons like why most of this stuff is so confusing.
Question. Mm-hmm. Is it more universally accepted to call it a flatted second instead of a minor second? Or is there any distinction there?
The distinction is it is not always flatted. The interval from G sharp to A is a minor second, even though A is natural. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is coming back on me the opposite way. Because in the past I've gotten that wrong before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our terminology is confusing enough, so we have to sort of keep it consistent where possible.
Yes.
So that's an issue with calling anything a flat something. Really, is there will be instances where you're naturaling a sharp, not flatting a natural. Right?
Yeah. That's a good point.
But yeah, if anybody knows a good reason why, other than just we're just using the word minor in two different situations here, I'd love to hear it. Off the top of my head, I kind of think that we're just using the word two different ways.
Yeah, and theorists, we are not above taking your input and emails.
If you have a better explanation than that, I want to hear it. Because, I mean, think about this. Think about if I said to a music theorist, 6.
Mm-hmm.
Just a plain old alphanumeric number, 6.
Yes.
What might that mean to somebody who studies music?
It could mean a 6th chord. It could mean a 6th scale degree. It could mean
an interval of a 6th. It could mean an inversion.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
it could mean pitch class 6.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, just think of all of the things we use these numbers for and all the different ways we use these things for. It's a system that's been, it's for you local people, it's kind of like the Alabama Constitution. It's just kind of had stuff piled on top of it years over years over years, so it's not really streamlined anymore. We use the same words to mean two different things sometimes. We conflate concepts that are similar but not exact, and things because it's just been added to over the centuries. So it's an interesting question.
Very good question. And if I had to tally it up in my head, I would almost say I would say that at least 40% of our listener questions are revolving around intervals in some way. That we just had 2 of them in this episode.
Yeah, it's confusing.
Yeah, very much.
It's super confusing.
And inversions and such.
Yeah, and you don't have that kind of a minor, minor chord sounds sad, so you get that it's minor because it's sad kind of thing. When you're dealing with intervals, you don't have that as much. I mean, does a minor 6 really sound sad? Not really.
Not right now.
But now it did, right?
Because
because I had to. So you don't really have that. So yeah, it's confusing.
Well, I hope that helps, Scott.
Yeah.
And I'll say one more thing. All morning I've been listening to Scott's music. When I find out that one of our listeners has an album, I listen to it.
We like to listen to it and we like to promote it.
We drive around.
Yep.
And listening to this album, I will say, Scott, the production value is fantastic. Mm-hmm. Your guitar playing skills are just great, man. I mean, really,
we're impressed.
Yeah, we were listening and wow, I wish I could do that. Yeah. His voice, very polished, very mature.
Yeah.
Very smooth.
Yeah.
And overall, the music I found to be very relaxing.
Yeah.
And very good. Good songwriting too.
Yeah. Good stuff. We have some talented listeners.
So check him out on sjacksonmusic.com. That's his website, and then he's on Facebook, Scott Jackson Music.
Great.
It's worth a listen for sure.
Indeed.
So now
have we been avoiding this?
We have been.
Have we been really talking about our listener mail and stuff to not get into this?
We got through our favorite part of the show and stuck it out as long as we could, stretched it out.
I don't want to give the false impression here. This is not that much more complicated than other theory stuff we talk about, which, as I say, I'm realizing we talk about some pretty complicated stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not like a whole lot more complicated. It kind of involves, as Yoda said, you sort of must unlearn what you have learned to a certain extent.
Now that we've come this far.
But in unlearning that, you realize this is the way really it was always working. It's just kind of taken a step further now.
Uh-huh.
So we've sort of dispensed with some training wheels.
Get this kind of Buddhist enlightenment kind of world vision, unified theory.
Music will kind of turn you into a Buddhist enlightenment kind of person. You study music theory long enough, and you start to say, oh, the self is an illusion. Yeah, I can see that. Key is an illusion. Why shouldn't self be?
Oh gosh.
so okay, all right. Before we get off into that, what are we talking about today, Jeremy?
Oh well, there's a good bit of things to be said about modulating to distantly related keys.
Yes.
And it seems like at this point it's usually chromatic kind of situation.
We are often at the point now where chromaticism is what allows us to do things like modulate to keys that are very, very far away, more than just 1 or 2 flats or sharps away on the circle of fifths, but like really, really far away.
Mm-hmm. That once white whale is now becoming a commonplace item.
Mm-hmm. As it did as music theory evolved through the classical Haydn and Mozart eras into the Brahms and Schumann kind of stuff. They added more chromaticism and had more options because of it.
Now, at what point in the scale of music history did we start getting into this kind of thing?
The 19th century. The middle of the 19th century into the late 19th century. By the very, very late 19th century, we're not quite there yet. But we're talking about mid-19th century.
From Beethoven?
Past Beethoven.
Past Beethoven, okay.
Beethoven dies in 1827.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, and Beethoven inspired all kinds of stuff, right? I mean, people like Franz Schubert, were he was a young man when Beethoven was an older man living in Vienna at the same time. Schubert would, when he saw Beethoven walking along the street, Schubert would duck down an alley. He was so intimidated to try to talk to Beethoven that he didn't want to talk. He would duck down an alley and hide till he walked by.
Oh, there he is. Oh, crap.
Oh, yeah. Right. Brahms kept a painting of Beethoven over his bed where he slept at night.
Did he?
Yes. And a bust of Beethoven on his piano as he composed.
Wow.
So Beethoven was the inspiration to all of these people. And they were all trying to sort of take what Beethoven did, which was exploding the theory, a lot of it, taking the theory and stretching it till it became art, right? So this is no longer music as a craft. This is music as an art, where you can take Mozart and say, okay, there's some very artistic things that he's doing, but he is also very firmly in an overt craft, right? There are things that a Mozart piano concerto will do, regardless. And Beethoven's just stretching that into art, and he's not abandoning it. He's just thinking of it in terms of creative potential. I'm a little bit of a Beethoven nut, in case you haven't figured this out. And then all of these other guys are like, well, let's just all do that. Let's just think about what kinds of things this system can do.
Beethoven said it was cool.
Beethoven said it was cool, and we're in this mentality now, and a lot of this is sort of social and cultural. This is the time of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and of Jane Eyre, and this is the time of nationalism. Art in the great French tradition or whatever, and it's also the time of great individualism, right? In not only music but in literature and in painting and just in society in general.
Daily life.
Yeah. My emotions are what make me a valid human being, not my class or not my job or. And so everybody's trying to do their own thing, and everybody's trying to sort of expand and be kind of more artsy and more creative. And so they're bringing in some of the things we've talked about, like the German augmented sixth chord, which the name has a little bit of nationalism implied, right? This is a German thing that we do, versus the French augmented sixth chord, which is and Neapolitan sixth chords, and using those in ways to branch further away from the sort of what was considered the model of the century before.
The cut and dry.
Yeah, the cut and dry. That's not to say Mozart didn't write good music. He absolutely did. But he was using a model that sort of didn't have the upgrades yet. We're buying the new edition. We're buying the version 2.0 when we get into the 19th century, and so we have a lot of chromaticism.
So Chopin lists, Schumann, Schubert.
Yes.
Those cats.
All those cats. Yeah. And honestly, some of the more famous classical music now, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of the things you're more likely to hear, and some of the things that are thought of as more of the more emotional classical music.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. But that's a digression.
A bit, but, history's nice.
So the chromaticism we're talking about today specifically is the chromatic third relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So chromatic third relationships occur between two triads that are a major third or minor third apart. And the big thing to make them a chromatic third relationship is that they are not in the same scale.
Mm-hmm.
So they're using chromaticism. So for example, there is a third relationship between a C major triad, right, and an E minor triad. Right? Mm-hmm. Now this would be considered a diatonic third relationship, diatonic mediant, right? Because I am still just using notes from C major. All white keys.
Mm-hmm.
When I use all white keys and make C, I have a C major. When I use all white keys and make E, I have E minor.
Mm-hmm.
So this is diatonic, just using the notes out of C major.
Yes.
Or A major, F major, or whatever.
Which we've spoken about.
And there are great examples. The Death March. Yeah, if I play it in D minor, I can just alternate between a D minor and a B flat major in first inversion.
Yeah.
A 6/6 chord.
Oh.
Yeah, and these are diatonic to D minor, and right. Diatonic mean chromatic, and this was going on for a long time. Chromatic mediant then would be the difference between C major and E major, and the relationship there.
Yeah.
So, and to create that E major, I have had to bring in a G sharp. I have had to bring in an augmented fifth above my tonic, a note that is not in my scale and not in my tonic key, ergo a chromatic note.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that is the distinction between a diatonic mediant relationship and a chromatic mediant relationship. Now, these chromatic mediant relationships, very, very useful when you're trying to get past your music sounding Mozart-y, as Chopin and Liszt and Brahms and all these guys were trying to do, mm-hmm. right? And get into some deeper, thicker, maximum. We've talked about chromaticism as being colors. Being adding some color, adding some spice. These guys are all about maximum color, right? Okay. So they're using these a lot. There are 6 chromatic third relationships to any major triad, and these are not hard. These make sense when you think about them. Yeah. So there is the 6, right? From
let's stay in C.
Yeah, we can stay in C.
Okay.
From C major. To A major, for example.
Normally an A minor in the key of C major.
Normally A minor. Yeah, if we went to A minor, there would be nothing special about it. We would just be going to 6, right?
Yeah.
But here we are down to A major.
My eyebrows just went up. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Something happened.
We were pulling in C sharp, right? Pulling in an augmented tonic note.
Yeah, it's
pretty messed up. And then there's the one that we already discussed, the 3. So from C major to E major. And I guess we should probably distinguish, Scott will appreciate this. We're distinguishing, these are relationships in chords, not necessarily keys.
Right.
Any chord, no matter what its function in the key, has these relationships in common.
Right, okay, yeah. Right? Good distinction.
Yeah.
Because we'll get into keys in a second.
Yeah. There is... So then there's the flat 6. There is C major to A flat major.
Oh wow, I love that one.
Yeah, and this was actually a big deal.
Yeah.
And more on that later.
Okay. That's probably has something to do with me loving it.
And then there is, all right, you've got flats. That is the flat major 6, right? We can go C major to A flat major. We could even go C major to A flat minor.
Oh, yeah.
How about that?
You know, everyone knows by now that I'm a mediant freak, so all these chords I'm going to be like, yeah!
yeah. They're good stuff, right?
Yeah. So I'll try not to freak out about every one of them.
And then we also have the flat third.
Flat major third.
In major or minor.
Okay.
Right, yeah. So C to E flat major. Or C to E flat minor. Yeah. And if you're losing the train of this, they are just the major and minor qualities of every chord that is a major third or minor third away, and that's it. You end up with 6 chords.
Good way to summarize it, actually.
Yeah,
that's in the major key. In the case in the major key. I guess the same thing applies to the minor key.
Well, we're talking about chords, really, not keys.
Right.
I mean, we talk about it. We can talk about keys, sure, but really, we're talking about we're really talking about the chords.
So we just gave some examples in major. Do you want to try and give these examples as well in minor?
Absolutely. So let's be in D minor.
Matt is over here navigating my when I use a B for the flat if I don't have opus handy.
I just see capital B and I want to play a B chord.
Yeah.
So
hang in there.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
So D minor. Let's be in the key of D minor.
Great. Saddest of all keys. I think you said that before.
So from a D minor triad, we have the minor 6. This was actually our our funeral march.
In reverse or what? Or is it the same? No,
I'm just doing inversions just to make it less clunky.
Okay.
But so D
minor
oh yeah, I was supposed to be doing minor, wasn't I? Mm-hmm. So D to B flat minor.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of got a Batman-y kind of feel. Yeah. I wonder why that is. Yeah. Like the old 90s Batman.
Yeah, Tim Burton or Danny Elfman. Yeah.
So there's the flat 6. There's D minor to the flat third, F minor. And there is D minor to the natural 6, the Ray 6. So D minor to B minor. Even give me B minor. Yeah, there we go.
D minor to B minor.
Yeah. Or D minor to B major.
Right, okay, I see what you're doing.
Yep. Or D minor to what would be the raised 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which would be F sharp. Major or minor. Mm-hmm. Right. So again, if you're losing the thread of how I'm making these chords, they're just chords that are a major third or minor third, up or down, in either major or minor quality.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't really use diminished quite in this, or augmented quite in this way. They definitely use diminished chords in this time period. It's just kind of a different thing. Mm-hmm. All right?
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. They all, to me, have kind of this airy quality to them.
Yeah.
This kind of meditative breathing kind of thing. Kind of.
Yeah, they have
ethereal.
the quality of getting at deeper emotions to me, other than just happy or sad. So D minor isn't just the saddest of all keys. You can get a sort of a thing going where. Yeah, and that's a little. I'm just going to use a few mediants here. How about that? Kind of almost got a narrative, kind of mysterious, kind of, It almost straight goes with the narrative, And then this happened, kind of, Anyway, so these third-related triads, these relationships can occur between triads, as we say, or they can also occur between keys, kind of as we have promised thus far. So we have these chords, and they're all a third apart. And what's interesting about these chords, and what these composers and later the theorists studying them noticed, is that even though these chords seem very far away, if you're thinking in terms of circle of fifths, right? So from C major to E major, that sound that seems so far away on the circle of fifths, you're not even going to get to it, right? So like, how do you even get that? What they noticed about these was that even though you think of them as far away, if you're thinking about the circle of fifths, if you think contrapuntally, if you think in terms of voices and counterpoint, they're really not that far from each other at all. So there's this chord, I need but move my C down a half step to B, and I need move my G natural but a half step up to G sharp, and I have my E major chord. So this is just half step motion in two of my chord tones, and I am into this chord that is supposed to be so ridiculously far away.
Right.
So in terms of counterpoint, particularly chromatic counterpoint, these chords are not that far away at all. In fact, what's true of all of these chords, in fact, they share a common tone, right? So with all of these chords that are a third away, up or down, be it major or minor third, and be it a major or minor chord that you're creating, there's always at least one note that is held common between them.
Yeah.
So in terms of voice leading, not so far away. You don't have to struggle through the circle of fifths to get this chord. You can just move a couple of voices, and there it is.
And it's almost like the first chord keeps a little bit of its personality as it moves to the second chord.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of people will talk about these chords as substitutes for the. So if you were in the key of C major, a major 3 chord, you would think about it as a substitute for a tonic. Right. Yeah. In fact, acting as a substitute for tonic is why you might call that major 3. If it moved to a 6 chord, you're going to call that 5 of 6, right? But when it's embellishing a tonic and prolonging a tonic chord, in this way. And then whatever. Yeah. That's when you would call it. You would notice this relationship.
Nice.
Yeah. Good stuff, huh?
Absolutely.
So there are a couple of them that don't share common tones. The sharp major 3 and the flat minor 6 and minor, and then the sharp minor 3, and then the major 3 and the flat minor 6 in major.
Right.
Don't, but the rest of them do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very
the rest
good.
of them do. And the ones that don't, you can still get to them by this chromatic stepwise motion. You just have to move all 3 of your tones. Right?
Very good.
So there you go. So we're talking about these relationships between triads. These relationships also extend to keys. So if we have the key, as we've alluded to a little bit already, right? So if I'm in the key of A minor, and A minor is my 1, I can create an F minor chord by moving the E in my A minor chord, scale degree 5, up to scale degree 6, half step motion, right? And moving the A of my A minor chord down a half step, and we're going to actually call it A flat, given the triad we're creating here, right? And we're going to go from A minor to F minor. And I'm just playing root position in my left hand. You can do cool stuff, or whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
Had a very film score-y kind of feel to it, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Really kind of cool. This moving. These chords are said to have a more of a linear relationship than a functional one.
Okay.
And all that means is I am not going 1 to 5 is functional, right? If I did that, that's a functioning relationship, right?
I've heard that many
1 to 5.
times. Yeah, I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Or what should happen.
And then that 5 is going to move to 1. Function, we talk about this function of counterpoint creating these tendency tones that create the ways chords want to move.
Kind of based on our expectations of Western music or what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go all the way back to Gregorian chant and to the Renaissance counterpoint and all that stuff. Those 3 big episodes we did on counterpoint and the tendency tones and those laws goes all the way back to there. Right? This kind of does too. We're still mostly obeying those laws, completely obeying those laws. In fact, but we have gone beyond the idea of functioning harmony, like we're going to create this chord and this chord is going to move. We're creating this chord not because it functions, but because we have moved chromatically 2 voices. So we're kind of going back to our roots and rethinking it, right? We're learning that 1 doesn't have to just move to 5.
Right.
1 can move anywhere that you can create, though, that you can get it to without creating parallel fifths or octaves or doubling a third or anything like that. Turns out that includes F minor, and who cares if that chord's not in the key?
Right, because you can still use this obeying all the rules, that Bible, that tome of counterpoint rules we talked about.
Right, contrapuntally it works.
Yeah.
And, if you try to think functionally, you come and go, wait a minute, that is... What even is that? I mean, it's not a borrowed chord. It's not a borrowed 6. That would be in the key of F sharp. That would be an F sharp chord to borrow from major.
From A major, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a diatonic 6 because it's the wrong quality. So where did you even get that chord? Well, it's not. I don't care what you say. It works. I can use the laws of counterpoint and get there. And in fact, get there very easily. That didn't even take a lot, of counterpoint to get from A minor to F minor, right? So this is a linear function. We are moving voices now in chromatics, not just in scale degrees, to get to these chords. We're not moving around the circle of fifths. It's not a function thing.
Exactly. Right. So the function is more revolving literally around the circle of fifths, kind of.
Yeah, and we use the term function, that the idea of predominant versus dominant versus tonic function, and what function would that F minor have had? There's also that, and that gets into some sort of deeper sort of structural issues. Are we, but we don't have to get into those necessarily.
That's all right, man. Now, up until this point, we've been referring to relationships among triads from one triad to the next, right?
Yes.
But apparently, this can actually also apply between keys.
Yeah, and really, this is where you see it more often, having great long-term significance. Mm-hmm. So, Schubert would do stuff like that. Schubert would kind of see. Kind of weird stuff like that a lot. But most of the time you would see these as key relationships, right? So not just being the A minor chord going to F minor, but being in the key of A minor, modulating to the key of F minor. Mm-hmm. What they call the great flat 6 tradition.
Yes.
Or even to the key of F major, which is not that far away from A minor actually, but would be considered the great flat 6 tradition.
Okay.
Which just meant a lot of people like to modulate to the key that was a flat 6 from the original.
So if we go from, I guess we kind of did it a second ago, but just to go ahead and nail it down, let's go from C. Can you get us from C major to A flat major?
To the great flat. Let's do to kind of get you from C major to A flat major. Well, yeah. And I'm going to do this by taking advantage of the common tone those two have. So, and I'm going to be in C major.
Okay.
Very nice, you know. C major. There's nothing controversial about this. Yeah, I can.
Nothing weird, nothing crazy going on. Some very functional, very diatonic. But what's this?
That is the key of A flat major. Establish a little bit better here by going I feel like I'm in E flat. Is that just me?
I don't know.
But
play me in E flat and I'll tell you. Yes, it did feel like we're in E flat.
So let's see if I can establish it a little better. I should probably make that a minor chord. It's probably what I should do. There we go.
So at what point did that modulation, did it happen immediately? Did you just...
It happened via common tone modulation, which is something we discussed briefly back in C now.
Okay.
I use that common tone that's common to both those chords, C and A flat, to get into A flat major.
So there was nothing in between. There was no, sometimes if we're modulating from one key to the next, we'll throw a few chords in there to make it happen or sound organic or functional.
Functional.
In this case, you just went right to it because hey, it's linear.
It's linear.
Yeah.
We're just in A flat now.
Yeah. Boom.
And I did being worried about being a good composer like I am trying to sort of emphasize, that relationship a little bit. Or something. But yeah, we end up in the key of A flat major.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah. Good stuff. When we talked about common tone modulations a little bit back when we talked about modulations, they weren't important in diatonic modulations nearly as much as the common chord. If you remember something that is 6 in one key, might be 2 in the next, and ergo we kind of use that as a pivot chord.
Yeah.
Yeah. This time we kind of have a pivot note.
A pivot pitch.
Yeah.
And that's just the common tone we're talking about. Same thing. Pivot pitch equals common tone.
Yeah.
But in the case, I guess you would mainly call it a pivot pitch if you were doing a modulation.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, pivot pitch, common tone, this is, diversions in terminology. We're talking about the same thing. We're talking about a tone that is common to my tonic chord in C major and also in my tonic chord of A flat major.
Right.
And therefore I can get to, how far away, that's 5 flats, right? B, D, A, B, E, A, D, 4 flats, away. So we got really far away from C major just by using that common tone. Yeah. And we find that when we try to say, well, I'm going to use a common tone to get as far away as I possibly can, we find that we end up going to one of these chromatic mediant relationships. So you would have, like in Schubert's Moment Musical, you may have a binary piece, an ABA piece, right? Where A would be in B flat major, so we're in B flat. We'd be in B flat. And then the B period, the B part would be in F sharp minor, which is the great flat 6. Flat 6 being G flat, right? But inharmonically we spell it as F sharp minor. And then back to the A section. That kind of thing. We go on. Where this middle section is this very far away tonality.
That did sound like distant.
Very, very distant, yeah.
But getting there wasn't so hard. It's almost like we jumped into a wormhole or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. And Schubert's probably better at it than me.
Well,
Or at least he spent more than 10 seconds trying to come up with it. But,
right.
But yeah, there you go.
A question for you, is a common tone required for this kind of modulation by a chromatic third? I guess it is.
Is it required? It happens a lot that you use common tones, but no, I don't really think of it as required.
Okay.
A problem you run into, and even a problem I've run into just now doing this, is feeling like you're firmly established in a key. You know, and that can often be a question of what happens after you've moved to that key. You know, getting a good 2-6-5-1, a good cadential 6-4 motion or something to feel like you're in that key.
Right.
You know, that's a good problem, but I don't really see it where it's required. You know, I mean, this is contrapuntal motion, and you can just kind of go to it. There is a Schubert art song called Der Jäger, the Hunter. It's part of his song cycle, The Miller's Tale, that jumps back and forth between these chromatic mediant relationships just all over the place. You know, if you ever want to look that up and analyze it, but you know, from one measure to the next, he's in E major and then C major, and then you know C major and then A minor, and then you know it happens all over the place.
So, Jägermeister, Master Hunter.
Master Hunter, yeah.
That's what I got.
Which is exactly what Jeremy's brain went. But yes.
Very cool. I'd love to hear that actually. So does this always happen between tonic chords or what?
No.
Oh.
It can really sort of happen, and some of the really crazy stuff is when it doesn't.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so like I can be in 4. I can be in C major. And I'll go to a 4 chord, F. This is simple stuff, right?
Please, yeah.
Yeah. But then let's go from F to let's go from F to D flat major. And let's call that R4. And that will put us in A flat again. Or maybe we just ended up in D flat major, sounds like.
Yeah. Still very distant from C.
Oh, well, it's a half step. It's C major to D flat major. Yeah, you don't get much more distant than that.
Right.
Yeah. Pretty cool, huh?
Very cool.
Yeah, and you can make that, you know, you could go from 4, make that D flat 5, and then you would end up in G flat. You know, that's a thing that could happen.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah, so yeah, G flat from C major. Yeah, that's
a road trip.
That's a road trip. That is almost all the way around. Yeah, in the space of a chord. And think, well, how do you get it all the way around in the space of a chord? Well, you're moving chromatically. You're moving linearly. This is linear function, right? Not harmonic function. You don't have to come up with some chord in C major that can be reinterpreted as 5 of 4 in G flat or something. You just moved there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Linearly.
Yeah, it's a little freeing, actually. As complicated as it sounds.
Now, it seems like to me, maybe why this sounds so good in a diatonic situation is because if you're moving to the diatonic third, for example, C major going to E minor, there's actually 2 common tones.
Yeah. Yeah, the 2 common tones being E and G, which are in both the C major triad and the E major triad.
But that's not what we're talking about today.
Not really.
But try it out and you'll hear what I'm talking about.
Oh, sure. Also, I only have to move one note here. So that's just back and forth. You know, so, and if I add a bass line.
Very
I didn't modulate that time, but
that's all right.
But I can do so. E minor, and then now I'm kind of in E minor, right? 4.
1, 5.
So it kind of ended up in E minor that way, you know.
Yeah. So you did modulate, huh?
So yeah, second time I did modulate. Yeah, good job.
Well, the last thing
on
I
my
want
part, I guess.
to say what?
On my part, I guess.
Well done, Matt.
Yay!
You are a true composer.
Not really. That's one crappy modulation, but it serves to make the point, I guess.
One man's mush is another man's music. Thank you for that quote, Dr. Angel. I use it all the time. Well, before we get out of here, we're just going to have a quick little discussion once more, as we touched on earlier.
Yes.
About the significance of the flat major 6 chord.
Yeah. So the flat major 6, it went so far as to become a tradition in romantic music. So these people would modulate from C major to A flat major.
Which I think we just kind of did, didn't we?
Which we kind of just did, yeah.
Well, we did D flat.
Yeah. Or from, we would have a be in the key of D flat, modulating D flat minor, modulating to or D flat major, modulating to the key of B flat minor, which if we had to reinterpret as A sharp minor, we would also do that. But and it was just this thing that happened a lot, this modulation of moving from the key that you start in to the key that is the flat 6 off. And particularly in major keys, they would do this because that was the one that was furthest away.
Okay.
That was the one that was particularly far away. Minor is just a diatonic thing, right? In fact, in minor, it's just moving to the relative major.
Yes. Yes.
Or I guess you can move to the minor version of the relative major. But in the major key, it was particularly far away to move to the flat 6.
Now let's tackle some of this key chaos here for a second, because I know that sometimes when you're modulating to some of these distant keys, you'll end up with double flats, double sharps, stuff like that. So we do inharmonic spellings to make it a little simpler.
Yep.
In which case we're not observing the same respect towards the original key.
We'll make D flat minor into C sharp minor because it's easier to deal with.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
C sharp minor only having 4 sharps, whereas D flat minor, gosh, I don't even know.
Or F flat.
F flat. Let's not get into F flat if we can avoid it. Yeah.
E major.
Yeah.
What the hell would that be?
F flat major would have 6 flats and a B double flat.
Yeah. The hell with that.
Indeed. Let's not do that.
Okay. And one more time, let's hear what this is going to sound like if we go from 1 to a flat major 6.
Okay.
I know we've done it a few times. But...
Okay, so let's be in D major.
Okay.
And let's not do anything controversial. And then we're moving from that to the flat 6 of that. I'm in B flat major from D major.
Wow. Hey, you pull that off. Cause
you didn't even think I had done anything, did you?
No, I thought we were back at the same key. I thought we were back on 1.
No.
Nah, that's a badass modulation, Matt.
I'm getting better at it. By the time this podcast is over, I'll be really good at these.
You'll be a true musician.
I will be not a true pianist, though. We still need a pianist if anybody wants to volunteer their services.
Keyword volunteer.
Keyword volunteer, yeah.
Okay, well, how about a quick recap before we get out of here?
Quick recap.
Is that what you think of the show, Matt?
Well, maybe when I think of chromatic thirds. is-
Possibly.
or music theory at this point. So, quick recapitulation. So, the chromatic third relationship is any relationship between two chords that are a major third or a minor third apart. And generally, we think of them as chromatic if they are not both in the same scale, meaning, unlike C major and E minor, which those are both diatonic to C major, we're talking C major to E major, where we had to bring in that G sharp to make the E major chord. So we're having to bring in chromatic notes to create these chords that are a major third or minor third away, and we call those chromatic mediant relationships. We're really describing the relationship between these two chords when we use the term chromatic mediant.
Or two keys, right?
Or two keys. Yeah, right. So there's, in practice, we're talking, if we assume that one chord is the tonic chord, we're talking about the major 6 chord, the major 3 chord, and then the flat 6 chord in both its major and minor forms. And then the flat 3 chord in both its major and minor forms. And really the 6th chord, too, in its major and minor forms.
Right, because when you're saying that these chords represent a major third or a minor third, you're also referring to going up or going down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, mediant or submediant, but mediant.
Yeah.
Right.
And when we say submediant, we're referring to the 6. We didn't say that in this episode, but
We've said that before.
mediant is 3, submediant is 6.
Yeah.
Right.
There are 6 chromatic third relationships to any minor triad. The minor 6, the minor 3, right? The major 3 would be a diatonic one.
Yes.
But the minor 3, then the sharp 6 in its major and minor form, and then the raised 3. I should say raised 6 instead of sharp 6. Sometimes it's natural, right?
Yeah,
Not
right,
sharp.
right.
But the raised 6 and the raised 3 in its minor form.
Very good.
Yeah. These are known to be chromatic mediants. An important thing to note about these is they tend to share at least one tone. Some do not. There are 2 in a major scale and 2 in a minor scale that do not. But most of them share a common tone together. And that is what makes it so easy to shift between one and the other.
And in the process of shifting, we might actually call this common tone a pivot pitch.
Right. A pivot pitch. Yeah. Are we missing anything from our recap at this point? These relationships can be talking about relationships between 2 chords or 2 keys.
Yeah.
So, as we've demonstrated, hopefully, it is really easy to modulate between these 2 keys using these chords. Between the key of D minor and B flat major, well, that's easy. Between the key of D minor and F sharp minor, or between the key of D major and B flat minor, we can shift easily to these very far away keys using these relationships.
Right. And all of a sudden it doesn't sound so far. It doesn't seem so far.
Doesn't seem so far away, no.
Clever stuff, huh?
Yeah.
I guess that's everything, huh?
Pretty much.
Cool.
There was a lot of playing and exemplifying in this episode.
Well, I needed that, and I hope our listeners did too, because there's a very specific sound that I'm catching.
Yeah.
And the subtleties are within the different types of chords, but for the most part, it has this overall kind of floaty, kind of cool.
It has a very, to me, almost, being a little bit overeducated like I am, I know that the 19th century is a time when they say that music's sort of companion art was literature. So like in the classical era, music was most closely related to drama, or to sculpture.
Aha.
And in the 19th century and in the 20th century, it's most closely related to art, painting, right? Canvases and things. And to
I see what you're saying.
yeah. And in the 19th century, it's most closely related to literature.
Really?
This is where you get all the art songs, the Earl Koenig, telling stories and things. And
Word
to
painting?
me,
No, that's an older thing.
what?
Word painting?
That's an older thing.
That's an older
yeah.
thing, okay.
But yeah, you get this sense in these chords of narrative too. The sense of I can be in this kind of normal key, and then use this to sort of get somewhere really far away, and it has this kind of ooh, what just happened kind of, and then it has this almost hero's tale thing where you go on this journey and go very, very far away, into this sort of the unnormal world or unnatural world, and from there you have to work your way back, somehow,
Interesting.
So yeah, that's the impression I'm left with, this very narrative quality of this stuff. Yeah.
I never knew that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Good little nugget.
And I had a professor once whose main topic of research was in this sort of thing.
Was it?
Yeah, and he was researching using chromatic mediants as substitutes for their original chords without the original chord ever even showing up. So he said, well, you can just take that chord out, plot this chord in, and this explains some of the weird kind of showing up of weird chords in some places in some music, Yeah. Substitutions, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So coming up next will be our listener compositions episode.
Yeah, that's going to be so much fun.
Part 2. I'm pretty excited about that.
It's going to be a nice little break from some pretty intense theory in this one.
This was pretty intense.
Again, is it really that intense, or is it just a breaking of what you've learned up until now? If this had been episode 1, would you have thought of this as especially intense?
Yeah.
Go to a chord that's a third away.
Well, maybe not.
Yeah, see?
When I had to do all the work in my head, yeah, it gets pretty intense. But when you just zoom out, like I say,
yeah,
it all a little more. So.
Yeah, for a theorist, it's intense to try to understand how this works.
Mm-hmm.
For someone who's writing music, go to a chord that's a third away.
Yeah, see how it feels.
Yeah,
I guarantee you're gonna like it.
You probably are,
because I love those mediants. I guarantee I'm gonna like it.
Jeremy is a fan of the mediants. I think I like fifths. I think I'm a fifths guy.
Really?
Yeah, I think I like that fundamental underlying structure that fifths give us, as we will be seeing as we go into theory, and we've already seen that our theory has sort of married up with music history at this point.
Yeah.
As we go further, we'll realize that this playing around with chords and playing around with chromatic contrapuntal ideas, it kind of gets us into this place to, do we even know what key we're even in, and does it even matter anymore? And that takes us into some far out there places.
Where you forget everything you learned.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Well, when we continue this discussion on part 3, that'll be getting a little more into linear chromaticism.
Yes, very linear chromaticism stuff.
So we'll look forward to seeing you guys then.
Starting to feel better about modulating to distantly related keys? We thought so. If not, there's still plenty to be said. So stay tuned. And don't forget, you can support us financially on patreon.com/musicstudent101. And for questions or comments, email us at info@musicstudent101.com.